"Leave the patient alone, or you'll get in trouble." He was fired. The manager's screams echoed through the intensive care unit, silencing the alarm on the monitoring equipment. Lisa, a nurse with 20 years of experience, wasn't shaking. She remained standing between the hospital security guards and the man, unconscious, appearing homeless, lying in the fourth bed. They thought she had an adrenaline injection, ready as a weapon. They thought she was about to collapse. They thought she risked her career for a homeless man. They made a mistake as a safety measure. They rushed at her and dragged her out of the building. The phone at the reception desk. Not only didn't he work, the phone rang. There was a scream, and the voice on the other end of the line wasn't TA doctor. Instead, it was the Pentagon. They only had one mandate: do not remove this nurse from the room. Rain fell in Washington, far from the demonstrations in the city. One Tuesday evening in November, slippery roads near St. Jude Hospital Center reversed the flashing red lights of ambulances, but inside the air was sterile, cool, and mildly scented with chlorine and old coffee. Lisa Bennett adjusted her blouse. She was 45 years old, gray hair, dyed prematurely at the temples, 2 marks of honor after decades in the emergency room. She had seen it all: gang shootouts, multi-vehicle collisions, overdoses, and the silent tragic deaths of the elderly. She was the nurse responsible for night work. The title meant she was actually the captain of a sinking ship that sailed with every appearance of the moon. An incoming signal. The radio in the sorting center made a clicking sound. A man in his 60s was found unconscious on a narrow intersection on 14th Street. No ID, low body temperature, slow heart rate, low blood pressure. Through floorboards. Lisa sighed and snapped her fingers into a pair of blue nitrile gloves. Shock room number 3 is available. Let's get him. Paramedics entered. The double bay doors. The stretcher made a loud noise. The man at the top looked like a ghost. Very thin skin, translucent gray, covered with layers of a dirty wool. A thick beard hid most of his face. The smell of cheap alcohol and alley dust swirled around him. John Doe, the rescuer, a young man named Kevin, was panting heavily as they carried him to the hospital bed. Found him behind a trash. Ken looks like typical exposure mixed with alcohol poisoning. Barely responds. Dr. Greg Miller, the attending physician that night, walked in while having a drink, an energy drink. Miller was young, arrogant, and self-centered. He was more effective in statistics than in human relations. He looked at the patient and frowned. "Perfect," Miller whispered. "Another frequent traveler. Protect yourself from toxic products. Warm him up, wrap him in blankets, and make sure he's in the hallway once his condition stabilizes. We need the ICU for critical cases." I heard there. It's a chain reaction on the Ring Road entrance. Lisa looked at the man. Something didn't seem right to her. She had treated hundreds of homeless patients. She knew the signs of chronic alcoholism, the hardships of life on the road. But as she cut off the man's sweatcoat to tie the ECG electrodes, she noticed his hands. Yes, they were tough, but not in the way of a manual worker or someone who had lived rough for decades. The calluses were severe at specific fixed points along the index finger and palm. Dr. Lisa said in a quiet voice. His heart raised 38. It's not just cold, it's a blockage. He's drunk. Lisa Miller said, turning to look at the graph fluid and electric blanket. Move him after 10 minutes. Lisa didn't move. She grabbed a pair of scissors and kept cutting the man's shirt. Then she saw it. It wasn't a tattoo. It was a scar, but not accidental injury from a knife fight or fall. A vertical line in the center of the chest. A sternotomy scar after open heart surgery, but next to it, just to it, below on the left thorax, were 3 small circular crease marks. Old healed gunshot wounds. But special Kevin. Lisa, who was putting his equipment aside. Did you find any personal items, anything at all? All of that. That's all, Kevin said, throwing up his hands. A small plastic bag filled with water sat on the table. We had to force her fingers apart. Lisa opened the bag. Inside was a rusty object. No name, no social security number, just a series of numbers. 8910. Alpha. Below a Latin phrase, barely legible. Due to rust vigilia, eternal vigilance. Lisa whispered, then turned back to the patient. He slowly opened his eyes, yellow and cloudy eyes that should have belonged to an alcoholic, looked bankrupt steel blue, terrified and aware. He gripped Lisa's wrist tightly. It was surprisingly strong for a dying man. "Don T, let them do this," he said in a hoarse voice, the sound of rustling pebbles. "The Archer's secret has been revealed, Sir Yuri, at St. Jude Hospital. Yuri safe." Lisa calmed him gently, trying to pull her hand away to check his pulsino. He tried to sit up. The screen straightened and then fell back. He screamed as his heart rate plummeted to 30. "Listen, nurse, cardiac arrest. Protocol 6 glasses of whiskey." Dr. Miller stuck his head out. "Lisa, why is he still here in the bay? We have a gunshot wound in 3 minutes. Come out." "You say, not drunk, Greg." Lisa snapped, abandoning all formality. "Look at this scar. Look at these wounds," whispered military symbols. Miller laughed as he walked right into the room. Symbols, symptoms of delirium from low body temperature and withdrawal. "It seems whiskey. 6 is a cheap alcohol brand. Press atropine and get him out of here. I need this bed." Lisa looked at the screen. The man's rhythm was chaotic, 3rd-degree heart block. He needed a pacemaker or coronary intervention, at least direct external stimulation. If they moved him to the corridor, he would die in 10 minutes. "Shaking it," Lisa said. Miller stopped. Silence fell in the room. The other nurses were busy preparing IV solutions when shock hit. Miller's face turned red. "I said move it," he sighed. "Unstable. If we move him, he's going to die. He needs a pacemaker now." Lisa approached Miller, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "I'm a nurse, Yuri. A doctor. I'm telling you, this man is an economic black hole. One night we'll be harshly criticized. It's a hopeless case and needs urgent attention. Remove him, or I will issue you a summons for disobedience before your shift is over." Lisa looked at the man in the bed. His eyes rolled back, but his hand was still clinging to her medical coat. Lisa wasn't just sick. She had a brother who fought in Fallujah. She knew the appearance of a soldier still making war, even if this war was in her heart. Lisa whispered, "Write to me," as she turned her back on the doctor. She tore the outer packaging of the hallway tray. "Becky, get the emergency cart. Start pacing at 70 beats per minute." Miller was furious. He slammed his notebook on the desk. "Okay, you want to play the hero, play yourself. But when administration comes here and asks why the emergency department is blocked by John Doe during a multi-trauma incident, I'll tell them you were the one who called it. He ran away." Lisa didn't even watch him leave. She placed electrodes on the man's chest. His body trembled from the electric shock. The screen stabilized. Boom, boom, boom. 70 beats per minute. She whispered to him as she wiped a mark of mud from his forehead. "Hang in there, the man didn't answer." He lost consciousness again, but in the pocket of his torn pants, which the rescuers didn't notice, a small black device the size of a remote control started blinking slowly, a silent red light. Lisa didn't know it yet, but she had just turned on a beacon, and the people coming to answer it weren't he. Doctors an hour past absolute chaos. Dr. Miller expected it to arrive in the form of a 4-car collision on the I-95 freeway. The emergency room looked like a battlefield. Stretchers lined up against the walls in the corridors. Nurses ran with O-negative blood bags. The air was full of voices, wounded, shouting, crying. Despite everything, Lisa Bennett stayed on guard in trauma bay number 3. John Doe's condition had stabilized. She started dopamine infusions to maintain blood pressure, wrapped him in warming blankets, and checked his vital signs every 10 minutes. Every 10 minutes, Dr. Miller cast a grim glance from the other side of the emergency room. Drowning in new trauma cases, he physically intervened, but he didn't forget he made a phone call at 2:15 a.m. The double doors of the emergency department opened not for a patient, But for Karen Holloway, Karen was the hospital administrative employee, a woman who examined medicine through timetables and liability clauses. She wore a cream-colored, clean white jacket that looked like it pushed dirt off the floor. Her heels hit the linoleum like a ticking clock. She was surrounded by two tall men in uniforms, Mike Reynolds, head of hospital security, and a young female guard Lisa didn't know. Lisa saw them coming. She moved instinctively between the door and door. "The patient's bed, Lisa," Karen said, in a voice dripping with false sweetness. She could barely hide her annoyance. "Dr. Miller told me we have a problem." Lisa corrected her arms, crossed. "We have a patient in critical condition, severe heart rhythm disturbance. Hypothermia." Karen glanced at the hanging chart. At the foot of the bed, John Doe, no insurance, no proof of identity according to Dr. Miller. It's a familiar classification, not necessary to hold the room. Lisa said he's been misdiagnosed. Stable now. He has old gunshot wounds, sternotomy scar. He muttered military-sounding words. He's not just a homeless man. Karen, he's a veteran, possibly special forces. He needs ICU level cardiac monitoring. Karen laughed, a dry, insulting sound. Military symbols. Lisa, listen to yourself. You've worked too hard. You're exhausted. Dr. Miller claims the man suffers from alcoholism-induced hallucinations. We need this room now. She pointed toward Mike Reynolds. Mike, help Mr. Dew into a wheelchair and accompany him to the waiting area. If he's still there tomorrow morning, we can't contact social services. He's under observation. Lisa shouted loud enough to attract nearby nurse's pacemaker. Disconnect him. And his heart stops. You asking me to kill him, please. Follow protocol, Karen said, snapping her fingers. The friendly mask fell off. This hospital is a business, Lisa. We can donate a trauma bay to charity. When insured patients are bleeding in the hallway, step aside, or I'll have Mike retire you. Mike Reynolds looked uncomfortable. He had known Lisa for 10 years. He knew she was the best nurse the building had ever had. Lisa, he said softly, stepping forward. Come on, Dante, make this awful. Let us move him. Lisa looked at the patient. His color was improving slightly, the gray turning pale pink. He was fighting for his sick life. She couldn't let him go, no, she said then. She put her hand in her pocket and pulled out an epinephrine auto-injector she had placed there earlier. It was just a threat. She would never hurt anyone, but they needed to hesitate. I am an advocate for this patient. I announce that this patient is unstable for transport. If you touch him, I will file a report for endangering patient life and assaulting a healthcare worker. Your shift is over. Karen responded immediately, cold and decisive. You feel comfortable with this duty, Lisa. From now on, Mike. Get her out of here. Mike sighed. I'm sorry, Lisa. Then he moved forward. It all happened fast. Lisa tried to block him, but the new guard grabbed her from behind, pinning her arms. The injector fell hard to the ground. Let me go, Lisa screamed, struggling against the guard. Scrip, you were going to kill him. Check his ID, check the number, get him out of the bed, Karen ordered, pointing. Now the man was unconscious. Mike moved toward him and reached for the stimulation electrodes on the patient's chest. Dante, there, Lisa shouted, tears of frustration burning her eyes. He's a soldier. He's a hero. Mike hesitated, his hand hovering over the leads. He looked at the man's chest. The scars. Lisa mentioned gunshot wounds, irregular cuts. Stop, Mike, Karen shouted. Do it, or it's your turn. Mike gritted his teeth. He looked for the pause button on the external pacemaker. During that moment, a discordant sound filled the room, not a squeak from a mobile phone or standard tweet. It was the hospital landline, the heavy old-fashioned rotary phone at the main reception desk in the emergency room. A direct line installed during the Cold War for civil defense emergencies. In 20 years, Lisa had never heard it ring again. The emergency department seemed completely paralyzed. The bell rang. The unit secretary, a young girl named Jessica, looked at the phone in horror. She picked it up with a trembling hand. Emergency room at St. Jude Hospital, she said. She listened for a moment. Her face froze, pale and white. She raised her head, eyes big, staring at Karen and the security guards. Ma and Jessica called out in a trembling voice. I have to take this. I'm busy with management, Karen shouted, looking back. Take a message. No, Ma and Jessica stood up, holding the receiver as if it were a grenade with the pin pulled. You don't understand. They said it was the Pentagon. Karen froze as the security guards eased their grip on Lisa. The Pentagon, Karen scoffed, though her voice shook. Is this funny? Who is it? Jessica swallowed hard. He stated his name was General Marcus Vance, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He wants to know why a GPS tracking device on Colonel Arthur Banks is still in his position in the emergency room. Lisa smelled blood. The sound reached her ears. She looked at the man in the bed. Arthur Banks. Karen walked toward the phone, heels clicking. She picked it up. Karen Holloway, hospital administrator, she said, trying to sound trusted. Silence fell. The sound on the other end was quite noisy, even from 3 meters away. Lisa could hear the barking. Authority, Miss Holloway. The voice said loudly, you have a very elaborate special asset under your care. Review what would happen if this man's heart stopped even for a second while under your second medical care. The council will revoke your permit. Then the FBI will arrest you for treason. Is that clear? Karen's mouth opened, but no sound came out. The general continued. Put the nurse on the phone. The one who activated the tracking device. Lisa Bennett. Karen turned slowly, face ashen. She held out the phone toward Lisa, who was still held by security guards. It's for you. Karen, whispered Mike Reynolds. Immediately dropped his hand. Lisa stepped back as if shining. She took the phone, massaged her aching wrists, then spoke into the heavy red receiver. This is Lisa Bennett. Her voice trembled, but was clear. Miss Bennett. The general lowered his voice. This is General Vance. Right away. Are you following Colonel Banks? Yes, sir. He has third-degree heart block. External pacing set to 70 beats per minute. Condition currently stable. But he requires ICU admission and possible surgery. Administration was trying to move him. Bring it back. The general let out a wicked laugh. Miss Bennett, look out the window. Lisa frowned. She stretched the cord and looked out the rain-soaked emergency room entrance. Above the noise of rain, she heard a new sound. The rhythmic hum of rotating blades. Floodlights pierced the darkness. Not one ambulance helicopter. It was black, huge. 3 Black Hawk helicopters descending toward the hospital garden, their downwash bending trees in half. The cavalry has arrived. Lisa. General Vance, said Don T. Let anyone touch him. Until my men come in, you in control of this room. Until I say so otherwise. If Holloway causes problems, tell her she can explain it to a U.S. Marine body. Lisa turned to Karen, who was trembling near the desk, and to Dr. Miller, hiding behind a chart. I see, General. I understand. She hung up the phone. She turned to Mike Reynolds calmly. Mike, continue my orders. No one enters R3 without my permission. Absolutely not from her. She pointed at Karen. Mike nodded. A new expression of respect flashed in his eyes. He moved to the door, crossing his huge arms. Did you hear that, Ma? And the double doors of the emergency department exploded open. But this time not paramedics. It was a team of 6 men in full tactical gear. Low, slung rifles, moving with terrifying accuracy. The real tragedy was just beginning. Silence fell heavier than the lead aprons. In radiology, the 6 men in black tactical gear, without insignia, except small American flag patches on their shoulders, spread across the room, and their movements were fluid, silent, and terribly precise. They didn't look like police. SWAT. They moved like predators entering a kill zone. The leader, a giant silhouette with a scar running through his eyebrow, lowered his rifle, but didn't holster it. He scanned left, right, up, down before his eyes settled on Lisa. Safe. He barked into his headset. Vital signs. Here he walked straight to the nurse station, ignoring Karen Holloway, who seemed to be trying to merge with the file cabinets up close. Lisa saw his eyes, tired but sharp as broken glass. Ma, he said, softly, Rumple Captain Hayes, Delta Force Operational Detachment 1. "Are you Bennett, Lisa?" asked, surprised her voice. Didn't tremble. She was still holding the red phone receiver even though the line was cut. Hayes nodded, "Well done." Then he looked at the unconscious man in the bed. "Is the bird stable enough for transport storms closing fast? We may have a 5-minute window before ceiling S too low for takeoff." Lisa shook her head immediately. "Absolutely not. He's barely holding external pacing vibration from takeoff alone could throw him into ventricular fibrillation. Move him. Now you retransporting a corpse." Hayes frowned, keyed his receiver leadership. "Bravo 1 nurse says package too fragile to move advisor." He listened, jaw-clenching. "Copy, we hold." He turned to the room, voice raised. "Listen up, this institution is now under temporary Department of Defense jurisdiction. Nobody leaves, nobody enters. All mobile phones on the table. Attempt a call, text, or social media post, you become a detainee. You can't do this." Karen Holloway suddenly found her voice again. She stepped away from the furniture, trying to remind everyone of her authority over nurses and new caregivers. "This is a private hospital. You have no rights here. I demand to see authorization." Captain Hayes looked at her with the indifference one might show a chihuahua. "I'm the man in this bed. Is classified level 1. If he dies, because you wanted to see papers, I want to need a permit. I'll need a shovel." Karen exhaled, face glowing deep crimson. Suddenly the third shock alarm screamed, a sharp, continuous cry every healthcare worker knows too well. Lisa spun. She ran back into the bay fog. Right behind her, the screen showed chaotic zigzag lines. "Fib Mike, get out of the way. Becky, load the paddles. 200 joules." Dr. Miller, who had been hiding near the pantry, didn't move. He stared at the soldiers. "Rifles paralyzed, Dr. Miller," Lisa shouted. "I need you up front." "He needs airway." Miller shook his head violently. "I can work with weapons pointed." "That's obvious," Lisa yelled, slapping paddles on Colonel Banks' chest. The body convulsed, screen flatlined, then irregular, then chaos again. "He's still in fib," Lisa said, heart pounding in her own chest. "Charging 300 joules. Miller, come here and intubate or help me. God help me. I'll testify against you for negligence at your hearing." Miller stumbled forward like he might vomit. He grabbed the laryngoscope, but his hands shook so badly he couldn't open the mouth properly. The blade clanged against Colonel Banks' teeth. "Stop," Lisa shouted. She pushed the doctor aside. This would end her career, a nurse, overriding a doctor during arrest. But she didn't care. "Captain Hayes," she said, raising her head. "Do any of your men have medical training?" Sergeant Cole, Hayes called a powerfully built soldier with a heavy backpack, rushed forward. 18 Delta Mom. "Am combat medic. Secure the airway immediately." Miller's key. Useless. The soldier didn't hesitate. He slung his rifle back, moved in carefully. 10 seconds later, the tube was down Colonel Banks. "Throat breath sounds." "Bilateral Cole reported," Lisa shouted. "Confirmed." "Approved." The monitor beeped, sinusoidal rhythm. Faint, but there. He was back. Lisa exhaled, wiping sweat from her forehead with her shoulder, but external pacing wasn't enough. The pads burned, his skin connection unstable. He needed a temporary transvenous pacemaker lead inserted directly into the heart. She looked at Dr. Miller, leaning against the wall, pale, sweating profusely. "No condition for delicate surgery. I can't." Miller whispered. "I'm not. We dawned to have a cardiologist." The cardiologist on call takes 40 minutes in this rain," Lisa said. She looked at the sterile tray. She'd watched the procedure 100 times. She knew anatomy. She knew the risks. But she was a nurse. If she intervened, she risked not just her license, jail. She looked at Colonel Banks, weak, defenseless, a man who fought for his country, now dying from bureaucracy, and a cowardly. Dr. Lisa grabbed sterilized gown gloves. "Nurse Bennett," Karen Holloway cried from the door. "If you take that scalpel, that's it. You're not a surgeon. You will be charged with assault and battery." Lisa paused the scalpel, hovering. Captain Hayes stepped between them, hand on his holstered pistol, not drawing. Just resting, Miss Holloway, Hayes said softly. Uniform Code of Military Justice, Battle Zone Field. Expedients authorized to ensure mission success. This trauma room is now designated Combat Zone. He turned to Lisa. You have the floor, Lieutenant Bennett. Save his life. Lisa didn't waste a second. Becky, betadine, lidocaine. Let's go for the next 20 minutes. Silence ruled the emergency department. Except Lisa's quiet commands. She found the jugular vein with steady hands that had held dying patients, comforted crying. Mothers cleaned chaos. She threaded the lead toward the heart. Watching the screen, it had to reach the right ventricle wall, too shallow, and it wouldn't work too deep, and it could perforate. Go. She whispered to herself. Everything aligned. Chaotic waves smoothed into tall, steady spikes. Captured Lisa. Breathed, set to 80 heart, responding. Beep, beep, strong, consistent. Lisa stepped back. Stripping blood-stained gloves, her hands only started trembling. Now that it was over, Sergeant Cole looked at her and nodded. Hell of a job, Ma. I've seen field surgeons botch the UVAC ice in your veins. Lisa turned to the door. Karen Holloway was gone. Dr. Miller was gone. Dr. Miller stared at the floor, but relief didn't last. The emergency lights flickered once, twice. Then the entire hospital plunged into darkness. Backup generators hummed faintly. Emergency red lights came on. Dim Colonel Banks screens flashed, then didn't. Return immediately. Captain Hayes tapped his helmet. Leadership Commander, can you hear me? Interference comms jammed. Hayes announced they've cut power and are jamming signals. He looked at Lisa. It's here. Emergency lights cast ominous shadows across the bay. Rain hammered windows like handfuls of pebbles. Who? Lisa asked, voice low. She moved instinctively closer to the patient, checking the pacemaker battery. She just installed it. Worked, thank God. Hayes signaled his team to defensive positions at entrances, 2 at double doors, 2 at ambulance bay. He spoke in a low tone. We call them the Syndicate Weapons Smuggling Network, Eastern Europe roots. But deep here in Washington, Colonel Banks was deep cover. We lost contact months ago. Lisa looked down at the man's thin face. He had lived on the streets for 6 months, hiding. Banks was a ghost agent, no paper trail. Hayes said he discovered something big. Reaches the top. He knew if he surfaced, they'd kill him, so he stayed hidden, mingled with the homeless. But he got sick. Heart block hit. He collapsed. Hayes nodded at the small blinking device. The beacon was last resort. He knew it. To bring us, but also alert them. Signal S, encrypted. But the Syndicate has triangulation tech, so they re-end the building. Lisa finished. You did the right thing. Hayes said if he dies, the intel in his head dies. That intel's worth more than the GDP of a small country. Suddenly a flashlight beam pierced the corridor darkness. Karen Holloway hurried back, followed by Mike Reynolds. Unacceptable, Karen whispered, angrily echoing in the silence. Generators barely running. We have ventilator patients in ICU. I'll call the police phones. Are dead, Karen, Mike said, surprisingly calm. Landline cells, everything fixed. Now Karen turned on Hayes. You brought this here. You and your war toys. I want you out of my hospital. Hayes ignored her. Looked at Mike, chief of security. Yes, sir. Mike said, straightening. How many exits in this wing? Main entrance, ambulance bay service, corridor to cafeteria, loading dock. Seal them, Hayes ordered. My men cover. I'll watch the patient. I'd on to work for you. Karen intervened. Mike looked at Karen, then at Lisa, standing over the colonel, protecting him, then at the soldiers preparing positions. With all due respect, Ma and Mike said, unclipping his radio, you tried to throw a dying veteran into the rain. Former Marine Karen. I know when command changes. He turned to Hayes. I have 12 Gaug in the safe and 2 night shift guys who know how to use it. We'll cover load in. Doc Hayes nodded a rare smile. Good man, go. Mike ran into darkness. Lisa Hayes said, turning to her. We need to move this bay. Is an aquarium anything through those doors we retargets? My room, Lisa suggested. Immediately thick copper-shielded walls, blocks signals, defensible. One heavy door led the way, Hayes said. They disconnected monitors, transferred Colonel Banks to portable screen. Sergeant Cole and Hayes took point and foot of the bed. Move, Hayes whispered. They advanced through dark corridors. Hospital-eerie nurses and patients huddled in rooms' faces, lit by faint exit signs. As they passed the waiting area, Lisa saw 3 black SUVs blocking. The ambulance entrance men in raincoats stepped out, no hurry, calm, professional. They carried things that looked like umbrellas, but weren't. Captain, Lisa whispered. 3 o'clock. Hayes looked. Frontal move. Move. Glass front doors shattered, not gunshot but muffled thud of breaching charge. Hayes roared, shoving the bed into a corner. Drywall exploded in white powder behind them. Exchange of fire began. They ran down the hallway, stretcher wheels squeaking. On the linoleum behind them, track of special forces, rifles answering attackers into the MRI. Lisa swiped her card. Heavy reinforced door opened. They wheeled. Colonel Banks inside room. Dark, huge MRI machine, like a giant donut in the center. Cole closed the door. Hayes ordered. Wait, Lisa shouted. Metals, magnets. Are they on? Powers out, Cole said. Lisa realized with horror. MRI magnets are always on except during shutdown. If anyone brings metal in here, Hayes froze my rifle. The pull was immediate. His metal-barreled rifle yanked toward the machine center. Everyone down. Too late. The door exploded open. One attacker, wet raincoat, suppressed pistol, entered. Physics. 1-3 Tesla monster. Zeitz, the machine gun weapon, ripped from his hand, floating like a rocket, slammed into the magnet with deafening metallic clang. Attacker stared at empty hands. Numb. Hayes didn't hesitate. Pulled Glock. Mostly polymer butt. Slide and barrel steel. He fought the pull. Angled 45 degrees away from machine bam attacker. Dropped. We can shoot here, Hayes said, struggling to holster against magnet. Tote bullets deviate. Weapons useless. So we use what we have, Lisa said, grabbing heavy non-magnetic aluminum 4-pole stand. She positioned it upright in front of the colonel. Door open. Perpetrators in hallway. In this room, most advanced weapons in the world were useless. It became hand to hand in the dark. And Lisa Bennett, the nurse, was ready. MRI. Room silence broken only by rhythmic pulses of Colonel Banks' heart on the portable monitor and heavy breathing of the 3 defenders. The rules of engagement changed instantly. Attackers in the corridor knew their firearms were useless inside the magnetic field. They hesitated. But they were professionals. They didn't retreat. Instead, they holstered pistols and drew ceramic, titanium battle knives. Non-magnetic, deadly. Stay with the patient, Captain Hayes shouted Lisa back to the platform. If they get past me, use everything to keep them away from Banks. 2 men breached the door. Shiny blades, low and fast, in dim hallway light. Hayes met the first with brutal efficiency. The soldier dodged a slash to the neck, grabbed the attacker's wrist, used momentum to slam him face first into the MRI plastic housing. Bone crunch. Disgusting. The second attacker lunged at Cole. Unable to leave the colonel, grabbed the only weapon available, heavy non-ferrous aluminum technician chair. He swung it like a baseball bat. Metal hit ribs. The attacker stumbled back. A third man entered, bigger than the others. No knife. He barreled past Hayes, straight toward Lisa and Colonel Banks. Lisa's heart slammed against her ribs. She wasn't a soldier. She was a 45-year-old mother of 2, but she was an emergency room nurse. She knew exactly how the human body worked and how to stop it. As the man rushed forward, reaching for the pacemaker cables, Lisa didn't dodge. She stepped into him, grabbed a bottle of MRI, safe cleaning solution from the counter, sprayed it directly into his eyes. The man roared, blinded, swung wildly at her face. Lisa moved forward, instead of back, pressed her thumb firmly into the soft spot under his jaw, the carotid sinus, pressure point, an emergency maneuver she used daily to slow combative patients at full force. It drops blood pressure, instantly causing syncope. The man rolled his eyes, knees buckled. He collapsed unconscious before hitting linoleum. Good initiative, Cole yelled, kicking away the knife from the man he'd deed. Downed Hayes finished the first attacker with a chokehold, left the body limp. They barricaded the door again, shoved the heavy supply cart under the fee. Handler Lisa ran back to the colonel. His heart rate spiked from the commotion, but the pacemaker held his eyes. Opened, blurry, swimming, he saw a woman in a scrub-soot-covered face, unwavering determination. "What a woman, Banks," growled voice. "Weak. My shoes." Lisa looked at Hayes. The captain nodded. She untied the colonel's muddy boots inside one, taped to the tongue of the leather. A microphone and microst card, no bigger than a fingernail. "Take it, Banks," panted Dig. "Protocol Archer." "It's the list of what Hayes asked they were coming." Banks muttered. "Traitors. Senate, Pentagon. The syndicate, they not just arms dealers. They own half of Washington. Bought them." Lisa felt goosebumps unrelated to cold rain. "This wasn't to rescue it. It was coup protection. They know I have it." "Banks," said one to stop. "Until this building's ashes, we need to exfil." Hayes said, "Secure server only, uplink in the medevac helicopter if it lands." A muffled thud shook the door, then another. "Attackers using a ram." The cart groaned. "Can't stay here," Cole said. "They're breaching in under a minute. If they can't shoot, they'll burn us out." Smoke smell slid under the door. Arson Hayes swore. Lisa looked at the MRI machine, then the back wall, a viewing window to the control room. Thick bulletproof glass control room had separate ventilation, and a door to the main hallway near elevators. Glass bulletproof. Hayes asked. "No," Lisa said, grabbing the heavy oxygen tank she'd used earlier. "But it breaks if hit hard enough." Hayes nodded to Cole. "Lisa, break the window. We were moving to roof." Lisa swung the tank with all strength. Glass shattered. They lifted Colonel Banks through the opening into smoke-thick control room. Then hallway air cleaner, but distant gunshots, close to the Battle of St. Jude, spread through corridors. Red emergency glow. Lisa led to service elevators. Only ones on backup power. Stretcher wheels squeaked on linoleum. Around a corner near locker room, they nearly hit a group huddled against the wall. Drawer. Greg Miller sitting on floor, clutching bloodied hand. Lab coat stained, trembling. "Don T. Shoot!" Miller shouted, rushing forward. Lisa knelt. "Greg, what happened?" Trying to reach exit. Miller stuttered, sweat pouring down. Pale face man in raincoat. "Shot at me, hid here." Lisa checked injury, superficial graze. "We were heading to roof for extraction. Come with us." Miller looked at soldiers, then unconscious Colonel Banks' eyes flickered nervously. "Roof, you sure?" "Basement might be safer." "No choice," Hayes said. "Move." They helped Miller up, but as they approached elevators, Lisa noticed through thin blouse pockets soft, rhythmic light pulsing. She stopped. "Greg, why is your phone working?" Miller froze. "Jammers cut all signals." Lisa whispered, "Captain S radio dead, so why us?" "Your screen on." Hayes' spun rifle raised slowly. Miller's trembling hands pulled out a cheap flip phone. Screen showed text target. "Moving to elevators. Cut them off." "Silence thick. You told them where we are," Lisa said, staring at the man she'd worked with for years. "I didn't know." Miller burst into tears. "They offered 50-0 just for location debts." Lisa said they were businessmen looking for military deserters. "Didn't know they'd attack the hospital you sold." "A patient," Lisa said, voice deep. "With disgust betrayed us. They threatened to kill me." Miller sobbed. Hayes grabbed Miller by collar, slammed him against. "Well, you compromised our exfil thanks to you. Assassins waiting upstairs." "I can text back." Miller begged. "Tell them I went to coroner. Redirect." Hayes stared. "Do it. Type change." Direction moved to sublevel Miller. Typed trembling hit send Hayes. Crushed the phone under his boot coal strip. His badget. Unauthorized access find a hole. And hide Hayes told Miller if we survive. You go to prison. They left the crying doctor in the hallway, pushed stretcher. Into service elevator. Lisa pressed roof car. Rose 4th floor 5th. Prepare, Hayes said. Gripping pistol. That message bought us 30 seconds when doors. Open noise. Look sharp. Lieutenant Bennett Hayes said to Lisa. Hold the colonel. Get behind air conditioning units. Draw their attention. And you, Lisa asked. Hayes smiled predatory. We read Delta Dawn T. Die easy ding doors. Open to wind and rainstorm. Tore at roof. But through heavy rain salvation. Modified. Stealth Black Hawk. Hovering inches above helipad blades, slicing air between them and bird. 4 dark figures stepped from ventilation stacks. They'd been fooled. Come on, Hayes, shouted he, and Cole ran from elevator, silenced rifles, coughing thwip. Thwip. Lisa hunched, pushing heavy stretcher with all force. Bullets ricocheted off cement inches from her feet. But she didn't flinch, eyes fixed on helicopter door. Move, move. Crew chief motioned, armed man. Grabbed from behind, raised gun. Lisa saw Hayes' opportunity gone. She did the only thing left. Rush forward, all strength. Hayes groaned. Bullet hit chest. Plate knocked him back. He rose, fast-fired pistol. Dropped attacker. Go, Lisa. Hayes screamed, blood on teeth. She reached helicopter. Strong hands. Grabbed. Colonel pulled him aboard violently. Then Lisa boarded, fell onto wet metal floor. She looked back, Cole retreating, dragging Hayes toward door lane. Suppressive fire gunner. Swindow opened minigun. Roared, eroding roof, forcing syndicate mercenaries to cover Cole Dove inside. They lifted off, sharp turn, sliding into sky. Lisa watched hospital red lights fade below ambulances. Scattering, she looked at Hayes, clutching chest, grimacing but nodding. They were alive. Pilot. S voice crackled through headphones. Inbound Andrews. Safe package secured. Then cold mechanical voice. Cut in, please. Respond. This is air traffic control. You are not authorized for Andrews. Divert to sector 4 or be engaged. Pilot paled. That snot HC. That spoof signal from above. Loud alarm filled cabin. Missile lock. Pilot shouted, hold on. Black Hawk banked hard left stomach, lurching. Pilot screamed. Flares, flares, blinding white. Magnesium fragments exploded beside helicopter, falling like waterfall stars in rainy night. Rocket streaked past, missed by meters, exploded in thunder, and light helicopter shook from shockwave, dropped 15 meters. Before pilot regained control, they missed. Cole shouted, clinging, but they were closing again. Can T outrun drone with this payload? Lisa lay flat. Looked at Colonel Banks, awake, eyes on ceiling. Death. Close, he reached into pocket, pulled microstay. Car, Captain Banks said weakly, but commanding. If we go down, you take this, Hayes. Shook head, blood staining teeth. Wanted to happen. Colonel Hayes keyed. Headset encrypted channel. Emergency frequency distress. Call this. Is Viper Dust taking heavy fire sector 4. Have Archer package request immediate air support. Distortion. Then cool quiet voice. Ignoring background noise. Wipe. 1. This is Viper led. Look up. Lisa looked out window. Above rain clouds. 2. Sonic booms cracked air. 2 F-16. Fighting Falcons streaked into night. Skyjet engines glowed like fire eyes. Viper. 2 Bandit call. Voice. Said one fighter. Turned, fired air. To air missile light trail. Connected to invisible drone. Hidden in clouds. Huge fireball. Illuminated Washington. Horizon. Bandit. 1 down. Pilot said you were clear to Pentagon. We'll take you home. Lisa leaned back, tears mixing with soot on face. Cole patted her shoulder. Told you, Lieutenant. We'd on to die easy. 10 minutes later. Landed on Pentagon helipad. Fans barely stopped spinning when medical team burst in. But they weren't alone in rain. Surrounded by dozens stood Marine General Marcus Vance. He did not look like government. He looked ready to tear world apart to protect his own Vance. Approach stretcher took Banks' hand. Welcome home. Arthur the list. Vance said quietly. Banks handed small card. Whispered it. Is all there? Vance's jaw tightened tonight. A thorough cleaning. Then General turned to Lisa. Soaked, bloodied, exhausted. Not normal nurse anymore. A soldier who stayed standing. Vance rendered sharp, perfect salutes surrounding Marines, followed Miss Bennett. He said, lowering. Had you disobeyed hospital orders, assaulted security? Performed unauthorized surgery, destroyed MRI worth $2 million. Lisa swallowed. Yes, sir. Vance grinned. Best damn nursing I've ever seen. News headlines exploded. Archer scandal rocked country, leading to arrests of 3 senators, 2 Pentagon officials, dismantling of Washington syndicate cell. Dr. Greg Miller arrested at Canadian border. Bag of cash. Serving 20 years for conspiracy and endangerment. Karen Holloway fired next morning. Board decided poor manager after attempting to deport Medal of Honor recipient on deathbed. Lisa. Didn't he lose her job? In fact, she couldn't walk emergency room without handshakes, but she didn't stay long at St. Jude. One sunny Tuesday. Lisa moved into new office sign. On door, didn't he say, manager? It read Lisa Bennett, Director of Medical Education, Walter Reed National Military Medical Center, Surgeon General, U.S. Army. She sat, picked up file, smiled, phone rang. Director Bennett, voice said. Critical case incoming. We need you to oversee. Lisa grabbed stethoscope. I'm on my way. This is story of nurse who stood against hospital betrayal. Dr. Treason, mercenary army. To save hero's life. Lisa proved no badge or gun needed to be warrior. Sometimes all you need is stethoscope and courage to say no. If this story kept you on edge, place reserved press. Like button now helps these stories reach wider audience. If you believe nurses and veterans deserve ultimate respect, share video with friend on T. Forget subscribe. Hit bell so you never miss true heroism stories. What would you do in Lisa's shoes? Risk career profession to save stranger? Tell me, comment below. Thank you for watching. Stay safe, stay heroic.